Hello and welcome to Bookworms. It's the show where we read a book and then talk about that book. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Joe.
How you doing this fine evening, Joe?
I'm tired. We just had the parade go by.
Yeah, you had a parade just because I was coming down to record an episode.
Your oldest niece has her birthday this weekend, so she gets a parade every year.
Oh,
because,
very nice.
You know, it's the town of this town in Western Massachusetts just loves her. And judging by how many people jump off their floats and give her a hug or say hi or crowd around her, she knows half the town. I don't know how, but she knows everyone.
Yeah, you also have like 4 buckets of candy behind you.
Yeah. The guys at work are going to love me for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I always think about like Halloween, like when we were young and trick-or-treating, and like my candy seemed to disappear really fast. I don't remember ever eating all of it. Pretty sure Mom and Dad were doing a little 5-finger discount.
Yeah, one of those buckets will go to work next week. The other bucket, whatever's still in it, is going to work a week and a half later.
So they get like 3 pieces.
If they're lucky. If they eat their dinner.
Eat your chicken nuggets.
At least we don't have to demand them to eat their broccoli. They like broccoli. I don't know. They're weird.
Yeah, you just got to tell them it's treetops, and then they're all about it.
They don't even need that. They eat it.
Yeah.
They eat their veggies. Everything else, pasta, rice, chicken, beef, they don't want it.
Interesting.
I don't get it.
So they're vegetarians, as long as that vegetable is broccoli.
Or carrots.
Or carrots.
Not onions. Or peppers.
Yeah, can't have the onions.
Tomatoes are okay, though.
Yeah, so this is a parenting podcast.
Is there a book about parenting, Alex?
I haven't read it.
Why not?
It's not my department.
Oh, okay. I thought you were working towards that department.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a good time. Anyway, lots of practice. But,
anyways, back to the books.
Yes, this is the show where we read books, talk about books, and try not to be too awkward. This was...
good thing we're brothers and we're used to the awkward.
Yeah.
The rest of you're just unfortunate.
Yeah. So this is our second book in Season 2, and that means it is the first Joe-picked book.
And I'm starting off strong, unlike Alex, I think. Maybe not. Alex probably has a different opinion here, because he hated a lot of my great picks last season.
Yeah, I've got high energy here. I've got lots of opinions about this book. It'll be a good time.
Okay. So the book I picked was Alice by Christina Henry. And this is a retelling of a popular fairy tale, Alice in Wonderland.
Well, it's not really a fairy tale.
What would it be called?
Well, it's a children's classic for sure. We got Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. It's sort of like I guess we call it a modern fairy tale.
I call it a fairy tale. I guess what is the definition of a fairy tale?
Well, they're like really old stories. Traditionally, they were told by word of mouth. They usually have some sort of lesson or moral at the end.
This one definitely has some lessons and morals throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, but there are also they are called modern fairy tales. Like The Wizard of Oz is a modern fairy tale. It's usually considered the first American fairy tale.
Okay.
But we're not talking about Wizard of Oz. We're talking about Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, tangentially, because we are talking about Alice by Christina Henry.
Yeah, so I'll read the back here real quick. In a warren of crumbling buildings and desperate people called the old city stands a hospital with cinder block walls that echo the screams of the poor souls inside. In the hospital there is a woman. Her hair, once blonde, hangs and tangles down her back. She doesn't remember why she's in such a terrible place. Just a tea party long ago, and long ears and blood. Then, one night, a fire at the hospital gives the woman a chance to escape. She tumbles out of the hole that imprisoned her, leaving her free to uncover the truth about what happened to her all those years ago. Only something else has escaped with her, something dark. Something powerful. And to find the truth, she will have to track this beast to the very heart of the old city, where the rabbit awaits for his Alice.
Yeah, so we immediately get that kind of like dark tie-in to Alice in Wonderland. It's it really twists Wonderland on its head and turns it into this
This is not a story for your children. Let's
Yeah.
just say that there is. We'll put a little note in here now of there's a lot of rape, incestuous stuff, murder, torture,
Yeah, if you're a fan of
cannibalism.
if you're a fan of sex and violence, this is a book for you.
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about a lot of the stuff like it's nothing because the book makes it just sounds like it's nothing. So just be aware that because this is a very dark, grimy, slimy kind of book where horrible things happen to horrible people and good people alike.
Yeah, I took a shower after reading it.
In Bleach.
But yeah.
So we start off in the insane asylum with Alice, who realizes she's on drugs and just kind of living life as a zombie.
Yeah, they've basically got her sedated. They have all the people in the hospital sedated.
Except for her neighbor, Hatcher, who basically goes absolutely crazy, and basically the wardens, people that are taking care of him, just beat him up and leave him because it's too much effort when they try to sedate him. But he talks to Alice through a little mouse hole in the wall, and they become fast friends over the years.
Yeah, let's say it's kind of funny. Like the first couple pages of the book cover this huge span of time where they Hatcher and Alice bond.
Yeah, it's a kind of an information dump right in the beginning. It's a lot of stuff to absorb real fast.
Yeah, they want to establish that character dynamic in a hurry.
Yeah, it's because once they get out, it's basically hold on to your butts because we're moving fast.
Yeah, it's a shorter book. It's under 300 pages, and
it feels longer though because a lot happens.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. A lot of very fast-paced action. It's just a quick overall snapshot of it. It almost feels like it's episodic in nature. It's like they go to this one place, one thing happens, they go to the next place, they go to the next place, and it's all tied in together. But it's very much like go here, fight this boss, go here, go to the next boss level. It's very video game-esque.
I was gonna say it's very adventure novel-y from back in the day. You read The Color of Magic and all all those from Discworld series of the Rincewind.
Yeah, the Rincewind one's each chapter is kind of like just a self-contained story.
That's a common trope of older adventure novels, though. It's you go from one place, fight whoever, go to the next place. You're just jumping from place to place to place, and so this kind of follows that format. But yeah, so we got two crazy people, Alice and Hatcher, and you quickly realize that Hatcher is the Mad Hatter, even though he's not really a hatter, he's just mad.
Yeah, such creative naming.
The one thing I did want to ask you a little bit later, Alex, is when we get to certain characters, do you recognize who they are from the original story?
Yeah, you were going to ask me that, but joke's on you. I haven't actually read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Mr. I've read everything, and he hasn't read one of the big classics.
I know, it's weird. I do have strange gaps in my knowledge, even working in an elementary school library. There's
I'm disappointed
classics
in you.
I haven't read. I haven't read Strega Nona. There's a bunch of Dr. Seuss I haven't read.
Dr. Seuss?
Yeah,
I've read all of them.
I've read a lot of Dr. Seuss. There's a couple that are missing from my repertoire. But I'm
shaking my head at you, Alex.
Yeah. But yeah, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland's one I never really got to. I've also never read The Chronicles of Narnia. I mean, Mom read that to us when we were kids, but it doesn't count.
I'm speechless. I am speechless. I don't know. Are you my brother?
I did read. I have read Pinocchio. Okay,
I haven't read that one.
All right. So
I'm currently. I'm currently reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to the children.
Oh, that'll put them to sleep.
Yeah, it does. It's actually quite wonderful for the little one. She knocks her right out at 2 pages in. It's great. The older one is not working quite so well. Because the language that's used is complicated at times, and I struggle with the words a lot of the time. Like last night, it was a lot of scientific Latin stuff, and I'm just stumbling. But she's like, "What's all that mean?" Like, son of a bitch.
Hang on, let me Google it. Yeah, we got to get Jules Verne on this show at some point. He's such a fantastic writer.
Mm-hmm.
His contributions to sci-fi.
Yeah, maybe season 3.
Yeah, maybe.
Not happening this season. I'm sorry.
Spoilers. No Jules Verne. You have to get your journey to the center of the earth somewhere else.
That'll be the one Alex picks probably.
I'll probably go with one of the shorter ones. Around the World in 80 Days is really fun.
Anyways, we're talking about Alice.
Yeah, I guess I keep getting sidetracked.
I know. Alex is a little tired. He had a long commute after a long day at work.
Yeah.
He missed the parade.
I was weeding gardens.
The children were disappointed. So, I'm going to read a quick quote here.
Go ahead.
Kind of get us in the mind. It's some foreshadowing going on here. This is they're escaping out of the insane asylum. The place is on fire and is about to blow up. And Hatcher's going nuts because the dark creature that lives in the basement is about to break free. So this is when they're about to jump out the window, Alex. Hatcher grabbed her hand to keep her from stumbling forward into the empty air. We jump into the river, he said, and swim across to the opposite bank. We can disappear into the old city after that. No one will look for us there. They will think we're dead. Yes, she agreed again. But we're not supposed to go into the river. It will kill us. All the factories dump their waste there. I remember Father speaking of it. He said it was an outrage. Neither can we stay here, Hatcher said. If the fire does not consume us, then they will catch us in their nets and put us back in our cages. I cannot go back, Alice. I cannot spend the remainder of my life as a moth beating its wings against a jar. I would rather perish in the mouth of the Jabberwock than that. So, spoiler alert, the Jabberwock is turned to a moth and put into a jar. So,
Dun dun dun.
so they kind of give it away by page 20 there, but
Yeah, that is really good, and it also introduces some of the central themes of the book too. Just like it's like you can live in captivity or die a free man kind of attitude.
yeah, and Alice is scared because basically being in the insane asylum, her life is easy. As she just goes day to day. They all blur together. She's fed. She's clothed.
She's sedated.
She has her friend to talk through at the mouse hole. She just, it's like, why would we want to leave? This is nice and easy. Where Hatcher's like, this isn't freedom. This is purgatory. This is, we need to get out of here. And Hatcher, both of them are having memory problems where they don't really remember why they're there. What got them there.
Yeah, that's a definitely I call it a trope, I guess, where they have amnesia, both of them, and they only get the memories they need exactly when they need them back.
And part of it is they're at the location where the thing had happened, or they're talking to someone who's telling them what happened. It's like, oh yeah, it's coming back. Or a magician is putting the memories back into their heads. So it's done well enough that you're not like, oh come on, through most of it. But
yeah, it fits well with the pacing.
Yeah.
You can, it's a fantasy novel. There's gonna be some suspension of disbelief and all that good stuff. So it works within the story. I'll give her that.
Yeah, you Scrooge you. But yeah, so they escape the insane asylum. Hatcher is scarier in real life. Alice realizes, and she's still drugged and she's struggling to keep up. Hatcher, we learned, had basically been doing the prison workout of push-ups, sit-ups, parkour within his cell, as whatever he could do to stay fit, while she just kind of sat there all lovey-dovey, like singing Kumbaya. And so he's dragging her around the city trying to remember what's what, where to go, and he's just following his feet, hoping that they wind up someplace safe. And they do. They wind up at Hatcher's grandmother's house, who we find out is a seer and can see tidbits of the future. And yeah, Alex, you have anything to say?
Yeah, she kind of sets up the adventure they're about to go on, where I think she's the first one who hints that Alice might have magic powers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, she is. But she's also warning them, stay away from the rabbit. Yeah. Do not go to the rabbit because she sees only pain and death there. So now Alice is deathly afraid of going to the rabbit, and
so they take the scenic route.
Yeah.
And that gives us a story. And all the while they're being haunted by the Jabberwocky.
Yeah, and the Jabberwocky is this mystical being that no one knows anything about, but everyone knows that does know about him. Says he's bad news bears, and if he's there, you might as well just cower and die, because that's all you can do.
Yeah, and Hatcher is especially terrified of him. It's like really the only thing that Hatcher's afraid of, because we find out pretty quickly that Hatcher is a just absolutely brutal, lethal killing machine, which he maintains throughout the entire book. He kills a lot of people.
Yeah, he likes to kill people. That's one for one thing. And his favorite weapon is what? A hatchet. Ooh.
The Mad Hatcheter.
Yeah. But we learn quickly that Hatcher has a history that's not quite all hunky-dory, which is obvious. We also learn that while there is magic, well, we're hinted that there's magic, but we get the idea that this is probably like the 1800s time frame, you would say.
Yeah, it's kind of a eclectic time period, but
I think it's kind of following the same time frame as when the original story was written. But
Yeah,
there are guns we find out, and they're super rare, super dangerous, and but Hatcher gets his hands on one essentially.
Yeah, like it turns into kind of I picture it's kind of like 1920s era mobster style town, but yeah, it's all about the same, like turn of the century.
I put it closer to 1850, honestly. Yeah, maybe 1890. Basically, Industrial Revolution, kind of.
Yeah, that would make sense. I can see that.
But pre-World War One.
Okay, so yeah, just like turn of the century kind of feel.
Yeah.
All right.
So just kind of like you remember the movie Gangs of New York?
Yeah.
Kind of that time frame.
Okay.
Which that was Civil War there. So, but yeah. So I have a quick bit here, Alex, that reference what we're talking about here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so after they leave Bess's place, they go into one of the mobsters' territory called the Carpenter. Now, we never meet the Carpenter, but we find out he's kind of a two-bit mob boss that controls a small territory, but he's being overrun by the Walrus and Grinder.
Yeah, there's like a big old gang war going on where they're just all jockeying for territory. Like they trade in drugs and women, and yeah.
Yeah, so they end up Hatcher. This is the first time we see Hatcher just kill, where he kills two thugs, just Mad Hatter style.
Yeah, brutally murders.
Yeah,
them.
and Alice is like, I thought we were trying to stay low profile. Leaving a trail of dead bodies is not low profile. You need to get control. And he's like, meh. But they end up finding a pub, like an old style pub.
A public house.
A public house, and getting a room to rent to sleep because they haven't slept since the fire, and Hatcher hasn't really slept since the fire. Alice is just getting over the drugs, and they end up find the Walrus, who's the mob boss taking over Carpenter's area, sends a bunch of thugs into that area, and they are about to murder the owner of the establishment and basically take his wife and the barmaid to the Walrus, who is a cannibal and likes to eat women while they're alive.
As you do.
As you do. I mean, tasty flesh. But so you get this, and basically Hatcher and Alice are forced to kill them all because we can't, we're trapped here, and the last thing we need is something like this to happen. We don't want to watch people just being taken away randomly. But it kind of gets into a moral question of trying to save everyone versus saving those that it's convenient to save while not losing track of your mission, because they're listening to all these people basically being murdered and women dragged and girls dragged away, and Alice is like, we need to do something about it, and Hatcher's like, no, this is not our problem. We have bigger fish to fry, like the Jabberwocky.
Yeah, that's like the big moral dilemma. It's like, do you stop your like already noble quest to do right by other people? And so like every time they wind up in a different slumlord pimp's mansion full of female prisoners, they argue over whether it's the right thing to do to like save them as they go through and do their things.
Yeah, and Alice is basically squirming because she is basically wants to go back to the asylum because it was simple there. But these big decisions of who's has the right to live versus die, because they could save these people, but then they'd probably die in the process, or they wouldn't be able to do what they need to do.
Yeah, a lot of the rescue things would put them at risk, which would jeopardize their main objective. And then finding the rabbit.
I mean, it becomes a moot point in the end because the Jabberwocky is drawn to the death, and Hatcher ends up being passed out because the power of the Jabberwocky has this weird control over him. And this is the first time where we see Alice actually use some magic.
Yeah, she manages to clear Hatcher's head,
and she's able to
drive away the Jabberwocky.
And the bar owner and the wife, and more importantly the barmaid, see this happen, like, oh, you're a magician. And Alice is in denial because in this world the magicians, as far as she knows, were all driven away out of the old city and the new city because they were terrible, terrible people. So she doesn't understand that, no, their magicians are still there. They've just become the mob bosses.
Yeah. She definitely. I think she denies her powers for way longer than she has to. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's like that whole like pull, like she's kind of refusing the call of her magical powers as long as she can, even though they're basically what saves them multiple times throughout the early portions of the story. Like they go see Cheshire, and then he like tries to kill them in the maze, and like she gets out using her powers and is still denying it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was her trying to keep her naivete, not wanting to grow up, wanting to say just go back to the simple days. Because she keeps having flashbacks of how great the asylum was, even though it wasn't that great, or before how great Newtown was growing up as a little girl, where you live the life of a aristocrat essentially, and she just is like, I want to go back to that. I want to go back to that, refusing to admit that life is gone. Both those lives are gone. They were ruined because of a decision that she made, but we don't learn until the end of the book that it wasn't really her fault per se. She was tricked by someone that she thought was a friend, but she made some poor choices, and the consequences, now she's stuck in this world and she has to accept who she is.
That's the worst kind of consequence.
Yeah. But yeah, so they leave that establishment and run into the Cheshire because
he's very catty in nature.
Yeah. But yeah, they were told that he would know the weapon needed to defeat the Jabberwocky, so that's why they're going to his place. And they get there, and he likes cake. He likes to have creepy, perverted smiles, and he likes to play games, as a cat likes to do.
Yeah, the way Christina Henry takes a lot of the characters' traits and like perverts them, it's actually very well done. Like the Mad Hatter, like he's not just mad, he's a psychopathic killer. And Cheshire, he's not just this sly, witty cat. He's this perverted mob boss with very special powers, and he seems to always know more than he lets on.
And at this point, the drugs have worn off Alice, because we can all of a sudden see a personality change where before, in the beginning, Hatcher was kind of needed the brute force method of getting through there, saving, just wanton killing. But all of a sudden Alice kind of realizes, hey, I need to take charge here because killing our way out of this isn't the solution. And she realizes, like Cheshire, you can't just go at him with an axe because he's going to do something and you're going to look a fool. You have to play his word games. And she said she's out of the influence of the sedatives, so she's able to actually be kind of playful in that Cheshire way that the Cheshire likes.
Yeah, she matches wits with him.
Yeah.
And they start in, they try being like dishonest, like she's disguised as a boy the whole time, and like they try and pass that off, and it's clearly not working.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Every time they do it, it's like, yeah, why are we even bothering doing this? Because this fools nobody. The only one that fools is at the Caterpillars whorehouse, and one of the prostitutes tries to get on with Alice, thinking it was a young boy. But yeah, so but you start to get kind of Alice's, what you perceive was probably Alice's personality before the asylum, after whatever before whatever terrible thing happened to her, the reason why that terrible thing happened to her. So you're starting to get those hints, like, okay, we're getting a little bit more in depth of her character now, her original character. Still awake, Alex?
Yep.
I see you're struggling. You keep nodding off and checking our texts. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So Alex, the Theodores, I forget. There's Theodore and Theobald. You know who those are from the original?
I would probably be Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Did you see that connection when you first read it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering. It's like, it was just good enough because they separate them and between two different establishments. But it's like, hey, it kind of seemed like these guys, and I was like, I wonder if Alex is catching on, if he's looking for these connections between the original story, not realizing you hadn't read it.
Yeah. No. Like, even if you haven't read Alice in Wonderland,
probably seen the Disneyfied version, anyways. On TV.
Yeah. Like the characters that are in that story, they're like, I don't know, they're canonically just amazing characters, like the Mad Hatter, the Rabbit, the Tweedledee Tweedledum, the Queen of Hearts, the Jabberwocky. Like, they're all things that you just kind of know from birth. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to make the connections.
But yeah, leaving Cheshire, Alice is forced to use her magic again. Basically, the Cheshire is trying to force her to admit that she's a magician, even though she's still refusing to admit it to herself, even though everyone else is like, no, you're a magician, stop being a fool. But he basically drops them off right at the caterpillar's whorehouse, and then we get the eating the cake and drinking the potion to shrink and grow, and they wind up in this very exotic brothel.
Yeah, I like this one. Like they take this is a cool scene, even though it's very horrifying. They like have like women animal hybrids. So there's like a mermaid who's like forced to wear this mermaid tail and swim.
Well, the mermaid was an actual mermaid.
Oh, was?
Yeah, but all the horrors were dressed up as butterflies, where he would surgically attach wings to them, and then the one girl that was had her legs broken next to the mermaid was what was she? Was she a butterfly too?
I believe so.
Yeah. So, but yeah, all the girls had butterflies like sewed onto their backs, butterfly wings, or basically magicked onto them.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the home of the caterpillar.
Yeah. Whereas this tall, skinny guy that just loves beauty and wants to see it tarnished.
Yeah, he's like he wants to put like his own mark on it. So
yeah,
the caterpillar theme is his calling card.
Yeah, and we find out that his magical abilities is reading minds and reading feelings. So like everyone that wants to murder him, he can read their minds and he can basically stop them from doing anything. So basically, he's like the mermaid, just thinking how she wants to torture him to death all day, every day, and he just thinks it's hilarious because she's stuck in this tank and can't get out. And basically, he has the mermaid's power is she's like a muse, so he'll whore her out, and the guys that she sleeps with will get these fantastic ideas while they abuse her, and so she's being humiliated and destroyed that way. And he's just again treating her like a commodity that he can become rich off of and gain territory and continue living the high life while the city crumbles around him.
Yeah, we definitely, especially with the caterpillar, we start seeing that dynamic between male and female, because like the men are all like either like enforcers, soldiers, or criminals, and the women are generally prostitutes, sex slaves, and they're treated very much like property. So there's like throughout the entire book, there's that whole like dichotomy of really just horrific gender roles.
Yeah, and at this point, Alice is starting to realize that hey, these are all these mob bosses are magicians, but they all have different strengths. So she sees that they kind of hint at what the carpenter can do. I forget what it is, but the caterpillar can read minds. They assume the Cheshire is all illusions, even though we find out he's a little bit more complicated than that. But that's what he likes to pretend all he can do.
Yeah, and the oh gosh, what's the name of the other dude?
The walrus.
Yeah, the walrus. He's just
he has no powers, but that's why he's eating children. But we also learned that the rabbit had powers, but he had lost them. But he had his, I forget what his powers were too. That he had some special ability that set him apart from everyone else. But yeah, so Alice is able to kill the caterpillar because while Hatcher and the mermaid are thinking of killing him, she's figure out, hey, if I don't think of murder and just do it, he won't be able to stop me. And she does exactly that. She gets him talking about Hatcher's past, and that comes crashing down on Hatcher as he finds out that he worked for the rabbit. He was the rabbit's muscle, and till the rabbit stole his daughter and killed his wife. And that's when the Hatcher went mad and killed a bunch of the rabbit's men before the cops showed up and threw him in the madhouse. But yeah, so Alice is able to distract the caterpillar, kill him. Turns out that the caterpillar's brothel was held together by magic and creates basically a giant pit when he dies.
It just crumbles into nothing.
Yeah. So they escape with a mermaid who can magic herself to have legs to get out of there.
The mermaid is very bitter that she did not get to kill the caterpillar.
She holds that against Alice, and Alice is like, yeah, I thought we'd be buddies here, buddies in trauma. And it turns out that she learns an important lesson there, that trauma has different avenues and how to recover from those. And so she's, it's a kind of a bitter pill, because she thought she was going to have an ally in this, and it turns out no, she hates me as much as she hated the caterpillar, but now she's pointing all of that hatred at the rabbit who had sold her to the caterpillar. And of course, not the rabbit, Cheshire. And of course, Cheshire is just like, yeah, I can handle her, no problem. Don't worry about it. This is just all fun and games for me, because he's watching them from afar. So they're in this tunnel. They find some rats that are the size of bears. And Alice finds out she can talk to rats.
Yeah, she's got a parcel tongue, but for rats. A little Harry Potter reference there. But yeah, she's that's a really funny scene. It's also tragic as you find out like the walrus is, he's destroying these people's lives, and the rats are just trying to escape from the walrus. But there's also these funny things like Alice is just like, "What would you do if I didn't speak rat?" And they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, we would have killed you and eaten you."
Yeah, but yeah, so the rats are trying to escape the walrus because he uses them to fight, and so they're like, "This is a bad place. We want out of the city." And so they get past the rats. They find 3 doors and pick the door. One leads you back to Cheshire. One leads you to the walrus. One leads you to the rabbit. And at this point, they're like, we have to go to the rabbit because the rabbit has the weapon to kill the Jabberwocky. Of course, they pick the door to the walrus because
whoops.
Yep. And once they realize they went through the wrong door, too late. They can't get back out.
Yeah, but Hatcher decides he really wants to get his revenge on the walrus.
Because he realizes is this guy named Grinder, who he beat up in the underground boxing world, and they have a grudge. And we also learn that the walrus had tried to buy Alice from the rabbit because he thought if he ate Alice, he'd gain her magic. And he desperately wants to become a magician, so that's why he eats all these girls in the hopes that he'll one day accidentally eat a magician and gain their magic.
Yeah, that might be my only hope. My letter never came in the mail when I turned 11. So
yeah, just gotta jump into a toxic pit of something radioactive, Alex.
There you go.
That's the last chance you got.
My luck, I'll just break out in hives.
Or your hair will start curling like mine does. You'd be like, I'm hideous.
Yeah. Oh God, curly hair.
But so they get into Grinder, and Hatcher's like, I'm gonna kill him, and they find that Grinder has a illegal animal fighting ring where people fight giant animals, and they see this rabbit that is the size of a bear with 2 broken legs being beaten up by this man, and they decide to intercede in this, and
yeah, the whole thing looks like Michael Vick's house. But it's,
very much.
Yeah.
But
that's a deep cut there. That's an old reference.
Yeah, we learned that Alice can talk to rabbits and rats.
Yeah, she's multilingual.
Yeah, she's very good. But she decides that she wants to save the rabbit, and they kill the walrus. They have the rabbit kill the walrus. She heals the rabbit with her magic, and that's kind of when she starts to say, okay, maybe I am a magician.
Yeah,
and
she's now trying her fate,
but she still doesn't understand quite how it works. But the Cheshire's talking in her head, telling her what she needs to do, hinting at it. And then they have the rabbit kill the walrus, and then they go up into his brothel side of the business and decide to save all these girls.
Yeah, they get the girls out of there, and then so like we see that kind of growth where they decide, yes, we are going to stop and save the people.
Yeah. Of course, they go out back into Old City and see everyone is dead outside because the Jabberwocky's getting a little annoyed that he's
aggressive.
Yeah, that he can't find what he's looking for, which is this secret weapon, this knife, this blade.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, and well, now it's like a race to get to the rabbit because that's basically the last character to find, because they don't go to the Red Queen in this one. That's book 2.
The final boss.
Well, the final boss is the Jabberwocky, Alex.
That's true, yeah. Because the rabbit winds up, he's this big, he's touted through the whole book as this huge, fearsome, all-powerful wizard, and then they get there, and he's nothing like they expect.
He's basically the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. He's lost his powers, he's old, he's decrepit.
Basically, he lost an eye because Alice stabbed him in the eye, and we find out that the knife she stabbed him with was the knife that she was supposed to use to kill the Jabberwocky.
And she threw it in the river.
Where it disintegrated.
Oops.
But now the rabbit is old and decrepit. He has rabbit ears because the Cheshires thought it would be funny to give him rabbit ears because everyone called him the rabbit, because he was kind of the gambling guru beforehand.
Yeah.
And the slave trader of the mob bosses. But he ends up getting killed by Alice's old friend that betrayed her because she's been stuck with a rabbit trying to take care of him, because otherwise if she abandoned him, she was going to get basically used up like all the other girls got used up in Old City. And Hatcher's annoyed because basically he went there to hope to find out what happened to his daughter, and he gets no clues other than she was left the city. So that sets up for book 2 to go find the daughter, the lost daughter.
Second quest.
Yeah, but Rabbit dies kind of pathetically. And they're like, oh, that was easy. Step outside, and the Jabberwocky's waiting for them. And Alice, at this point, realizes that how to work her magic is through making wishes. And she realizes that Hatcher can't fight this boss either. Basically, Hatcher's become... She's outgrown him, let's say.
Yeah, he was definitely like her protector, and his solution was just to kill everything. But she's had to be more resourceful than that and find different ways to outsmart and outwit. She's I guess since we're talking like fairy tales, folk tales, she's more of like a trickster character where she doesn't have the brawn, so she has to use her brains to get through situations.
Well, she doesn't have the brawn, but we find out that she's probably the most powerful magician that's ever walked the city.
Yeah,
because on top of
to...
well, it's not only that. She had her magic. She stole the rabbit's magic, and that knife had part of the Jabberwocky's magic. So she has the magic of 3 magicians inside her now. So she's got this she's basically Superman walking around without realizing that there is no kryptonite to slow her down if she didn't want it. And the Jabberwocky realizes this and says, I gotta kill you and absorb your magic if I'm gonna want my magic back and become the most powerful being in the universe again. But she tricks him and turns him into a moth in a jar and says, I'm gonna put you in my pocket and forget about you and then bury you. So no one can ever find you. And we all forget about you.
Yeah.
And that's basically the end of the story. They leave the city.
Yeah, and that's Alice.
Yeah.
So non-stop pulse-pounding action thrill ride. It's really cool. It's I was kind of hot and cold on it in parts when I was reading it, but
it does have its draggy moments.
Yeah, overall, it's a good book. Yeah. I would say the action scenes are particularly well done.
Yeah. I'm gonna read one more quote here.
Yeah, as far as murdering people with a hatchet go, it's very dynamic.
Okay, one more quote here for the end. This is after Alice beats the Jabberwocky.
Light bulb went out.
Yeah. She did not say that she was a little afraid of being a magician and what she might discover inside. The 2 most difficult tasks were before them now, and she did not wish to be distracted. Though magic might be helpful, she thought. It might be, but then it might not be. The Jabberwocky was the essence of the most evil magician who had ever lived. The other magicians in the city were horrible men. Perhaps magic only corrupted. Alice did not want that. She was only just discovering who she was, and she wished to stay Alice. So this is kind of like the last big lesson for her of...
not letting your powers corrupt you.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
That quote. So that's kind of like a long-winded way of saying that. And she's just like, I realize I have all this power, but I don't want this power because I don't want to end like all these other people that have just done completely horrible, evil things. Because everyone she's ever met that had magic have been horrible people. I mean, the Cheshire out of the bunch of them is the most clever. He's probably more of the trickster character than anyone, which is why he survives.
Yeah, he's very much like a neutral party.
Yeah, he's trying to play neutral, but he wants the old city to stay the same because that's where he can have his playground. And while it's not raping and murdering little girls, he has his other perversions that are hinted at.
Yeah, he definitely is going to take advantage of the fact that 2 major crime bosses just got defeated, and he's going to move in on that territory. So he was helping Alice. He was definitely he was an agent of aid, but he also had his own nefarious means behind it. Very Cheshire Cat-ish of him.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on the book, Alex?
See, I think I gave it 3 stars. Probably
you rated it a little low. I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah,
I was hoping for a 4-star. I didn't expect a 5-star from you, Alex.
Yeah, if Goodreads did 3.5 stars, I would give it that. But okay. I went low on it. But I don't know. Like I said, I ran hot and cold on it in parts, and I referred to some of the things like the memory loss as a trope, and I thought the whole parts of the reimagining was a little cheesy. I don't know, just with Cheshire coming out and he's just wearing a striped suit and looks like this 1920s era pimp. But like I said, the action sequence is very good. A lot of the moral dilemmas well written, and I enjoyed it.
Okay. Yeah, on second read through, the book I thought was showing its cracks. The first time I read it, I thought this is amazing. Basically, I read a lot. Whenever I read YA, I get really disappointed in all its lackings. And this author I was told is a YA style, but more towards adults. So I was like, I'll give it a try, and I said I absolutely loved it the first time I read it. This time though, I said you could kind of see the cracks of dragged out areas, a lot of pointless scenes that like didn't really add to anything other than to get from point A to point B. And part of the problem too comes from analyzing the book for the podcast, where I'm trying to read into more stuff. I'm reading slower to pick more stuff up to talk about, because otherwise these podcasts would be 15 minutes instead of hour 15 minutes. But
yeah, our readers thank you. Our listeners thank you.
Oh yeah. I know you thank me. You're like, come on, I gotta go.
Go work in the morning.
But I said overall, I still enjoyed the story. It was still a good story. Probably from a 5-star to a 4-star the second read through. Still a good book though. Yeah, I definitely would recommend this book to people that are looking to expand out of YA and kind of tiptoe into that darker side of fantasy and story retellings that aren't just kind of smut for young adults.
Yeah. I also thought we didn't really touch on this, but the relationship between Alice and Hatcher, not well done.
No, it is definitely a bad abusive situation type thing.
Yeah, I feel like that was like, I don't know if Christina Henry wanted there to be like sexual tension between them. I feel like that might have been like the publisher being like, no, there needs to be romance in this story.
I feel like it was done intentionally, but more because it was a setup for book 2.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read book 2.
Yeah, so
you probably know better than I do.
Book 2, it's because once they kill everybody, what's the point of them sticking together? So that they needed that. Basically, they needed that friendship to bud into something that's going to tie them together more.
Yeah, bud.
And we get that scene where Alice is getting some seer power, seeing herself in this house by a lake in the wilderness, and that becomes a really heavy thing in book 2. And then there's a novella, kind of like a 2.5 of a different character that's also seeing this, and basically that's a possible future for Alice and Hatcher. So she's trying to, like, that looks like a nice life, I want to live that life. But I said it's kind of, I said, if you look at the original story, which I haven't read, but basing off the movie, they basically took that movie and she put it into 2 parts. So, and honestly, book 2 wasn't all that great. I liked it, but it was not as put together as Alice.
Okay.
So I guess that would be, for that kind of that romance side of it. So I got some questions for you, Alex.
All right, go ahead.
How does turning a childhood classic into a gritty adult-themed book affect this story?
Well, if it's done right, it'll be a story on its own. Like, I've never read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
You've seen the movie.
Yeah, I've seen the movie and I know the story. But reading Alice, like, it's got draws from the clear themes, but it's a story in its own. Like, I feel like I could be unfamiliar entirely with Alice in Wonderland and it would still stand up as a complete story. I think sometimes doing something like this, like a twisted fairy tale, like, it's going to pale in comparison to the original. This one, though, I would say it rises to the level where it becomes its own story.
Yeah, I agree. I think for this book in particular, she did a good enough job that you can obviously see all the obvious connections. You can see some of the not so obvious connections, but it can be standalone as its own book. It's not it's a good enough retelling. You're not like, okay, this is just a rehash of the same thing. It's different enough, but enough throwback.
Yeah, like a lot of these like public domain children's stories, they get this twisted tale treatment. So this, I think, is probably one of the better ones.
Okay, and so I can skip question 2 since you did not read that. Question 3. How did you think the way women are treated in this story affect your view of the characters and the world?
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit. Like, the women are clearly just treated as secondary to men.
They're objects. They're to be traded. They're possessions.
Yeah, they're objects. Yeah, they're commodities. And like the men, I don't think there's a single male character in the whole story who's like you could call a good guy. Like, even Hatcher is.
I think
a psychotic murderer.
The bartender.
Yeah, maybe that's about it.
But I say because he had rescued his wife from a brothel and started the bar and was trying to keep the place safe for the girl that was the barmaid. So I think I took it as women were treated bad, but so weren't the men. Basically life was cheap.
Yeah, like in Old City, it just seems like all you have are like these like pleasure seekers, and you're just seeking dopamine hits essentially.
Yeah.
Whether it's drugs and alcohol or paying for prostitutes, that's the only like escape you have from the life you're currently living.
How does Alice's growth throughout the book ring with you? It was a good progression. Was it or was it kind of choppy, or was it you thought it was kind of like taking leaps and bounds when she shouldn't have been?
I think with each step, she learns a little bit more about her past, and she learns a little bit more about what she stands for. Pacing is very fast-paced throughout the whole thing with all the action going on. So this is kind of like when you watch an action movie, like there's usually that third act where there's a sudden realization or something like that, where like the guy like realizes what he's fighting for and he needs to stand up against it, and he fights extra hard. And that happens a few times in Alice. It's fine. It works.
Yeah, I thought it was paced well enough. Then there was no too big revelations. It was like you said, the denial of being a magician that lasted probably a little bit longer than it should have. But you could also see that where you could see the point where she was denying it, like she didn't believe it, then denying it to herself because she didn't want to believe it, and then to the point where you can't not believe it because you've seen it happen too many times.
Yeah, it's very like X-Files, where I think it's Skulder is like the one who doubts, and it just takes her way too long for her to finally come around and believe all the things she's seen.
Yeah. Eating and drinking are important themes in the story. Why, and what do they signify?
I think they signify gluttony and abuse, which are big themes with the villains, but also like food for the lower class people is more of a rare thing. So like I don't know, like when they go to Hatcher's grandma's and she feeds them, like that's a sign of camaraderie and civility.
See, I got kind of a different idea of it. It's one of those things where it's one of those, especially the better the quality of the food, the more tainted it was probably going to be. But it was one of those things where you still needed the sustenance, so you had to eat it anyways, because otherwise you just couldn't move forward anymore. So it was like weighing the pros and the cons of, is this worth what I'm going to have to pay for it later, kind of thing. So like, the Cheshire kept giving him food and having to say, it's okay, I didn't do anything too bad with it this time. You need it to move on to the next section, but then they're like, is it really worth playing this game? Or is it, and all these opulent things, like when Alice is being first kidnapped by the rabbit, and he's feeding her cake, and the walrus is feeding her cake, and she's just a stupid little kid that's like, Mom only lets me have one piece of cake, and these happy people are giving me all the cake I can eat. I'm just going to keep eating, not realizing that she's being had and she's being drugged and she's about to have her life destroyed, essentially. It says, she didn't, as a kid didn't weigh the consequences because she was naive, and as an adult she looks at the cake, I don't want that because I know where that leads, and then still having to eat the cake because she has to go somewhere. But she's taking the conscious choice of saying, I will eat this to get where I need to go. I'm not just eating it.
It's a means to an end, rather than just eating cake for cake's sake.
Yeah.
Eat pie. Pie's way better.
Yeah, I agree. What are your thoughts of Newtown versus Old Town? Is one morally any better than the other? We don't get a lot about Newtown, but we get some hints about it. You get a lot more in book 2.5, the novella.
Yeah, I think from what I can tell, Newtown it's the upper class bourgeois area, and I think it was very much like Gilded Age Renaissance, where it's hoisted up on the backbone of Old Town, which they keep Old Town down so that they can stay up. So yeah, they're living a fancy life, but it's on the back of an oppressed populace, and living in Old Town, like we talked about earlier, like they're stuck in this cycle of violence and criminal activity, and there's mob bosses running everywhere, and they're treating women like objects, and it's this, it's a miserable existence. And I think it's like, I think it's more, that's kind of like a reflection on, I think that might be Christina Henry trying to like shine a mirror on, like modern society. I don't know.
I looked at it more as a shining mirror on the Industrial Revolution time period, because you had that gilded elite versus the people working in the factories. I did think this was probably one of the weaker parts of the story, especially Old Town. I said Newtown, you learn a lot more about it and how it's actually not all that much of a better place. It's more of a Handmaid's Tale type scenario where for certain people it's very good, especially the men. But if you're a woman, you better stay in your place. If you're a little girl, you better stay in your place. But I thought with the Old Town, with just all the wanton violence and just basically if you're a young girl, just assume you're gonna get kidnapped. It's like a lot of problems with these stories is they're portrayed as so dangerous that society shouldn't stay glued together. Like if you lived in Old Town, you decided to have kids and you had girls, and you're like, okay, in 10 years they're gonna get kidnapped and thrown in a brothel or eaten by a mob boss. Are you gonna stick around there? Are you gonna bother building up anything?
Yeah, there's really no like place for family really in either part of life.
Yeah, and so just say, and I finally had to just kind of to get past that in this read. It was just say, okay, if you're a local there, as long as you're not like Hatcher's daughter, this extraordinarily beautiful girl, you're probably gonna be okay. You're gonna be left alone. They're gonna admit that, yeah, you're a local. We're gonna leave you alone because taking you away from this guy is gonna screw up this part of our town because he's gonna go nuts and start just taking a hatchet to people, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that basically that's to get past that, I kind of tell myself that just because the suspension of belief was a little tough. But yeah, I find that a problem with a lot of these more modern books. They don't really take that kind of stuff into account,
Yeah, it sounds like she tried to throw too much.
Yeah,
they
want like a
too much commentary.
Yeah, well, they want like a Mad Max scenario. But the thing with Mad Max was it's like you had these cities pop up, but they were short. They were short lived. They were basically someone came into power, built a town, and as soon as they lost power, the town dissolved, kind of thing. And this is like, oh, this is a forever. This is just how it always is and always will be. And it's like, but this isn't a long-term living situation. There's no stability. So you look at even during the Industrial Revolution in the 20s when you had all the mob bosses, the underworld was dystopian as all get out, but on the surface they wanted everything to look smooth because that was good for business.
Yeah, it was all lavish parties and rubbing elbows with elite businessmen.
Well, but even just in the working class cities, it's like, no, you can have your fights in basements, but when you're on the streets, everyone behaves. And if you start getting out of line, you will be disappeared because business is business, and business doesn't go good when there's a lot of violence going on. You remember our teacher, Mr. Bowman?
I never had Mr. Bowman.
You never had him? Oh, you missed out. He had some great stories.
Yeah, I hear he was good.
He had this one story where and I think it was Boston, that him and his girlfriend at the time went to a nice Italian restaurant. They leave and they realize their car was stolen. Go back in and to the host and say, hey, can we use your phone? The host is like, what's going on? He's like, our car was stolen. The host is like, go to the bar. Drinks are on us. We'll take care of it. They go to the bar. An hour later, their car is returned to them. I said, sorry about that. Won't happen again. And then, he did a little asking around. Like, realized it was a mob boss's owned restaurant. And basically,
you don't want to mess around with that.
Yeah, it basically, some car thief jacked their car and had their hands broken for going into the wrong territory. But it said that seedy underground, but on the surface to keep business flowing, it's like no, you're gonna, everything on the surface is gonna look on the up and up because you don't want you want people to use your establishments, I guess.
Yeah, gotta maintain the front.
A couple more questions and we'll be done, Alex. Don't worry.
Okay.
How long are we going on so far?
I got a little over an hour.
Okay. You're just yawning because you're being a jerk, so. When Alice locks away the Jabberwocky, is that justice, or is that just a perpetuation of a flawed system?
Well, I think the Jabberwocky is like a genuine monster, and he's kind of the a personification of the, like, I don't know, I'd probably say like the fear that people have, and so that's Alice turning him into something small and burying him. That's them like conquering the fear. It's kind of like at the end of Stephen King's It when they defeat Pennywise. Like they bring him down to their level, and they're able to like make him smaller. So I think that's just her conquering her past and her fear, and finding like her like taking charge of her life. So I think in that way that's justice, and because the Jabberwocky is just a monster. Like she doesn't forgive, but she spares the rabbit, and I think that's her version of justice, like to the outside world.
Well, sparing the rabbit was justice because he was ruined and he wanted to die. And while he still died at the hands of her friend, her former friend, it was more of a, you say he was basically, he realized he had lost everything, and he wasn't going to get his power back from her. So by letting him live was kind of that, kind of F you, I'm not going to give you what you want.
Yeah, this is a worse punishment than death.
So, what are your thoughts on Cheshire and his role in the world, and why is he alone the only one that doesn't get any sort of punishment?
Well, he's just like Cheshire Cat's always just been a chaos agent. You can't kill chaos, so he's just always going to be there. And like he can help you or he can hurt you depending on his mood, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
He was against the selling and sexual relations with women, so that kind of put him above all the other mob bosses who treated women as commodities. And while he was willing to sit by and let these other mobsters do what they did, he had the easy excuse of, I can't save everybody, and so I'm just going to control my little section of territory and do my trades. And he's still doing human trafficking type stuff, like with the mermaid, but it's not so he's not abusing little girls like everyone else is. So you're an evil, but you're not high enough on the list to need actual punishment. You're the lesser of the evils, the least of the evils.
Yeah, he's in the D&D world, he'd be like chaotic neutral. He's not full evil. He's just he operates by his own.
He's kind of
his
like
own moral compass.
Yeah, he's like a good businessman. He's like, if I don't deal with these evil people, I have no one to deal with, but I can save some people here and enrich myself and have everyone can prosper, and maybe these guys will stop doing what they're doing because they realize business is better when they don't do it, even though they keep doing it.
Yes.
Okay, last question.
All right, I'm all ears.
What is the lesson of this novel? Is telling it in this bloody, gritty, horrendous way more impactful than the original story?
Yeah, I think it's based largely, like I think the moral itself is based largely also around Alice in Wonderland, with just the coming of age, journey of self-discovery, and conquering your fears, and standing up for your friends and loved ones. All those themes are all there. They're all just very consistently running throughout both books. I think the violence in the story, it does kind of undermine it a little bit, because they, like I said, like Hatcher kills a lot of people, and
Alice kills a lot of people when you think about it. But at the same time, they're killing all evil people.
Yeah. So is it okay to kill evil people, for a greater good?
Is it okay to kill Nazis?
Exactly. Like that's essentially the question we're asking, and yeah, it's obviously yes.
I mean, of course, you can always turn that question around. If you're a Nazi, is it okay to kill everyone else? I mean, yeah. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's that kind of question, like what right does another human have to take another life, regardless of who that person is that you're thinking about killing?
Yeah.
I think that does kind of muddy the waters a little bit. This is like, yeah, I killed a lot of people to learn that murder is wrong.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, a coming of age story it's for adults. It's kind of making it so someone in their 20s and 30s is going to enjoy the story. I kind of compared it to A Clockwork Orange and the violence, where it's so over the top that it's like, how do you describe that one with the over the top violence?
Oh, it's like a parody, of a coming of age.
Yeah, and like you said, it does kind of ask the question: is the murder okay? And in this case, I think you could say you're seeing underage sex trafficking. Yeah, that's okay. There is no ambiguity in what these people are doing as evil as shit, and they needed putting down.
Yeah, they're evil. They show no remorse.
Yeah. And I think that there is a little bit of difference between the original and this one. Just based off the Disney movie, where they're both about taking control of your life, but the original one is keeping that innocence, that naivety, because she wakes up from the dream. Where in Alice, these horrors are all real. There is no escaping the world. Yeah, they go into the outside the city, but as they learn in book 2, that's it, just as bad, but in different ways, because now you don't have the protection of civilization. But so I said, that there is no waking up, or the waking up is to say, hey, this is what the world is, and you can't just continue being the little girl if you want to make the changes. You got to actually be a power to make changes for the better, even though they kind of run away from that responsibility by going to look for Hatcher's child, who's now full grown. That's Alice.
by Christina Henry.
Yeah, thanks for reading it, Alex, and coming down here and talking with me. I know you're in for a long haul home, and so we'll hurry up to our next bit here. So
Yeah. So that was Alice, and I got the next choice. I went with a slightly older book. It's an early example of fantasy. It's an early example of like a modern fantasy style story. It's this cool blend.
We're talking like Tolkien style era.
Yeah, like Tolkien. Oh gosh, hang on, pause. Yeah, the book came out in '69, so it's post Tolkien, post Lord of the Rings. Anyway, Tolkien was still alive, but yeah, it's just it's like a fun little fantasy story. It's got this cool combination of horror and comedy that runs throughout. It's very call it Pratchett-esque, where it just kind of blends genres in a clever way. This is The Face in the Frost by John Bellairs.
Yeah, I'm excited now. As soon as I finish our next bonus episode book, I'll jump right on it, Alex.
Yeah, no spoilers on the bonus episode book. But yeah, I read this one a while ago. I honestly don't remember much about it. I remember liking it though, so I'm excited to revisit it and talk about it.
Cool. And it's nice and short, which is your MO, and kind of nice right now as we're trying to play catch up after taking that nice long break between season 1 and season 2. And now we're like, we should have been working harder in the intro.
Catch up. Oh no, I'm doing 2 plays right now. I don't have time to read. So yeah, it chose some short books to start us off. So this will be a good one. This is especially if you read the books along with us. This will be an easy one to read and follow along with.
Yeah. So make sure you pay attention for when that episode comes out. And as I said, we do have a bonus episode coming up on the 20th. So as I've said in season 1, we post episodes on the 5th and the 20th of every month. The 5th is the book of the month that we have buddy read, and then the 20th is a bonus episode of something that's going to be a surprise, whether it's an interview, book that we were recommended, or whatever sort of thing.
Yeah, whatever we can get our greedy little mitts on.
Something that's easy that doesn't require as much effort as the main books.
Yeah. Sometimes.
So sometimes it's worse.
I had to power read House of Leaves. So.
Well, Hopscotch was just painful.
Oh my God. I read the long version of it too.
Yeah, you did.
Christ.
Thank God for that. That was you. But yeah, this has been Kendall Bookworms. We have a email if you want to get a hold of us, kendallbookworms@gmail.com. We're on Instagram @KendallBookworms. You can DM us there. We're on all the major podcast apps. Subscribe to whichever one you usually listen to, but rate us on Apple and Spotify. Give us comments. I put up polls occasionally on Spotify. Definitely check those out. We'd love to have any sort of interactions with our listening audience as possible. Alex has some books for sale.
Paul Plimpton versus Ragnarok.
You find that on Amazon. We'll have the link in the description. See what else we got. We got a Facebook group. We don't do a lot with that, but if people are interested in joining that, definitely join. We're on YouTube. If that's your preferred listening area, no video, only audio.
And no judgment.
Yeah, no judgment. Unless if you're judging Alex, then that's okay. He enjoys the hate.
Oh, yeah. Hate on me, guys.
Especially that hair hate.
Yeah.
He needs a haircut, people.
Oh, yeah. It's coming back.
Yeah. It's almost down to the tip of his crooked nose. What else we got, Alex? Anything?
I think that's just about it, right?
Okay, close enough anyways.
Yeah. If you want a full list of all the things we have, you can listen to previous episodes.
I ramble on for some of them for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, so that was Alice by Christina Henry. I'm Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Bookworms.
Out.